My fiancé's parents said, "You need to sign this prenup that leaves you with nothing." She nodded and said, "It's just a formality." I replied, "Then let's formalize it." The room went silent when I added my own clause. I, 31M, never thought a single moment could shatter everything I believed about love, trust, and the woman I was about to marry. But there I was, sitting in her parents' mahogany-paneled office, staring at a document that essentially treated me like a gold digger waiting to happen. The whole thing started 3 weeks before our wedding. My fiancée had mentioned casually over breakfast that her parents wanted to meet about some paperwork. I figured it was insurance forms or venue contracts. I couldn't have been more wrong. Her father, a prominent real estate developer, sat behind his massive desk like a judge about to deliver a verdict. Her mother perched beside him, designer handbag clutched tight, lips pursed in disapproval. My fiancée sat next to me, fidgeting with her engagement ring. Her father slid the document across the polished surface. He explained, in his coldest business voice, that this prenuptial agreement was necessary to protect their family's assets. As I read through it, my stomach dropped with each clause. If we divorced, I would receive nothing. Zero claim to any property, investments, or assets acquired during marriage. Even worse, there was a clause stating that if I was found to be unfaithful or caused the marriage to end, I would owe them damages. I looked at my fiancée, expecting her to defend me, to say something about how ridiculous this was. Instead, she nodded along with her parents. She told me it was just a formality, that it didn't mean anything because we'd never get divorced. Her voice was so casual, like she was discussing weekend plans. That's when something clicked in my mind. I realized this wasn't just about protecting money. This was a test, and more importantly, it revealed exactly what they thought of me. I wasn't family. I wasn't even trusted. I was a potential threat to be managed. I set the document down and told them I understood their concerns. Then I said we should definitely formalize everything if that's what they wanted. The room went quiet, probably because they expected me to either storm out or meekly sign. Instead, I pulled out my phone and called my lawyer. I told him I needed him to draft an additional clause for a prenuptial agreement, and I needed it done immediately. While we waited, I explained to the family that if we were going to protect assets and plan for worst-case scenarios, we should be thorough. My lawyer arrived within an hour. He'd prepared exactly what I'd requested. I had him read aloud my addition to their prenup. If my fiancée was found to be unfaithful during our marriage, or if she initiated divorce proceedings without cause, she would forfeit her inheritance and any claim to her family's assets. Additionally, she would be required to pay me a settlement equal to 50% of her current net worth. The silence that followed was deafening. Her father's face turned an alarming shade of red. Her mother actually gasped. My fiancée stared at me like I'd grown a second head. She stammered that this was completely different, that my clause was unreasonable and vindictive. I reminded her that she'd just called their identical terms just a formality. If these agreements didn't matter because we'd never divorce, then my clause shouldn't bother her either. Her father started ranting about how I was showing my true colors, proving I was only after their money. I stayed calm and pointed out that I'd been willing to sign away any claim to their wealth, but if we were planning for betrayal, it should go both ways. Trust, I explained, shouldn't be conditional on financial status. That's when the real fight started. Her mother accused me of being manipulative. Her father threatened to cut my fiancée off if she married me without their original prenup. Through it all, my fiancée said nothing. She just sat there, looking back and forth between her parents and me like she was watching a tennis match. Finally, I asked her directly what she thought. Did she believe their prenup was fair? Did she think my addition was reasonable? Did she see the double standard? She couldn't answer. She kept saying she just wanted everyone to get along, that we were making this too complicated. She begged me to just sign their version so we could move forward with the wedding. That's when I realized the most devastating truth of all. She agreed with her parents. She really did see me as a potential threat to their fortune. The woman I'd planned to spend my life with had already mentally prepared for our marriage to fail, and when it did, she wanted to make sure I'd be left with nothing. I told them I needed time to think. I took the documents and left, driving around the city for hours. Everything made sense now. The way her parents always seemed to be evaluating me. The comments about my modest job as a software engineer. The subtle hints that I should be more grateful for their acceptance. I went home and really examined our relationship. The signs had been there all along. She'd always been secretive about her family's wealth, not out of humility, but because she was protecting it from me. When we talked about our future, she spoke in vague terms about our money, but every concrete plan involved her parents' approval or resources. The next morning, I made my decision. I called off the wedding. The explosion that followed was immediate and spectacular. Her parents tried to paint me as a gold digger who'd shown his true nature when faced with a reasonable prenup. They spread rumors in their social circle about how they'd narrowly avoided a fortune hunter. My fiancée alternated between begging me to reconsider and accusing me of humiliating her in front of her family. But here's what they didn't expect. I went public with the whole story. I posted screenshots of their prenup on social media alongside my proposed amendment. I let people judge for themselves, which was reasonable. I explained that I'd been happy to sign away any claim to their money, but I couldn't marry someone who fundamentally didn't trust me. The response was overwhelmingly supportive. People saw through the obvious double standard. More importantly, several of her friends reached out privately. They shared stories about how her family had always been controlling and condescending. Some admitted they'd wondered if she really loved me or if I was just another acquisition that needed proper contracts. Update 1. 2 weeks after I called off the wedding, things got interesting. My ex-fiancée had apparently told everyone I was being stubborn and would come around once I'd had time to cool off. She even kept the venue reservation, confident that I'd apologize and we'd proceed as planned. Instead, I received a call from my lawyer. Her family's legal team had sent a demand letter claiming I owed them for wedding expenses and emotional damages. They wanted reimbursement for the deposits they'd lost when vendors canceled. The audacity was breathtaking. My lawyer's response was swift and brutal. We countersued for defamation, pointing out that they'd been spreading lies about my character and motivations throughout their social circle. We also demanded compensation for the emotional distress their deceptive prenup had caused. More importantly, I'd done some digging into their family business. It turns out her father's real estate empire wasn't as solid as everyone believed. He'd been leveraging properties to fund his lifestyle, and several of his recent deals were underwater. The obsession with protecting assets made sense now. There might not be much left to protect. I shared this information strategically. I didn't blast it publicly, but I made sure the right people knew. Within days, 3 different business partners had quietly pulled out of deals with him. The man who tried to humiliate me was now facing genuine financial pressure. My ex-fiancée started calling constantly. She claimed her parents had pressured her into the prenup situation, that she'd never meant for things to go so far. She begged me to stop the legal action and the social media campaign. She promised we could work things out if I'd just give her another chance. I listened to her voicemails, but never responded. Every word confirmed that I'd made the right choice. She wasn't sorry about the prenup or the lack of trust. She was sorry about the consequences. Update 2. A month after the wedding that never happened, karma delivered its final blow. My ex-fiancée had been secretly seeing someone else, her father's business partner's son. Someone from their social class who wouldn't need a prenup because his family was equally wealthy. The irony was perfect. While she and her parents had been planning to protect their assets from me, she'd been having an affair with someone who actually could threaten their financial security if things went wrong. Her parents' precious prenup wouldn't have protected them from the real betrayal happening under their noses. One of her friends, feeling guilty about staying quiet, finally told me the truth. The relationship had been going on for 6 months before our wedding. My ex hadn't just been planning to trap me in a one-sided marriage contract. She'd been planning to cheat on me from day one. I realized then that the prenup wasn't just about money. It was about control. They wanted to ensure that when she inevitably left me for someone more suitable, I'd have no recourse and no claim to anything. The emotional damages clause would have prevented me from fighting back even when I discovered the truth. Armed with this information, my lawyer amended our lawsuit to include fraud and conspiracy charges. We argued that they'd entered into wedding planning and a relationship under false pretenses, knowing about the affair while demanding I sign away my rights. The evidence was overwhelming. There were hotel receipts, restaurant charges, and even a jewelry purchase her father had unknowingly paid for, a bracelet she'd given to her affair partner. When confronted with the proof, her family's legal team immediately requested settlement negotiations. They knew they'd lose badly in court, especially with all the publicity the case had generated. The story had gone viral online, with people following every update like a soap opera. We settled out of court for a substantial sum. More than money, though, I got something better: complete vindication. The settlement agreement included a clause requiring them to publicly acknowledge that their prenup had been unreasonable and that I had never been motivated by their wealth. Her father's business never recovered from the scandals and investigations that followed. Turns out, when people started looking closely at his finances, they found several questionable practices that regulatory agencies found very interesting. My ex-fiancée married her affair partner 6 months later in a small, quiet ceremony. No prenup required, of course. His family's money made it unnecessary. Last I heard, they were both miserable, trapped in a marriage based on financial compatibility rather than love. As for me, I used the settlement money to start my own tech company. The business grew rapidly, and within 2 years, I was worth more than her family ever was. The woman who tried to protect her inheritance from me ended up funding my path to genuine wealth. I eventually met someone who valued trust over contracts, love over legal protections. When we got married, there was no prenup, not because we couldn't afford lawyers, but because we couldn't imagine planning for failure while promising forever. Looking back, that moment in her parents' office was the best thing that ever happened to me. Their greed and paranoia revealed the truth before I wasted years in a fraudulent marriage. Sometimes the worst betrayals are also the greatest gifts, showing you exactly who people really are when they think you have no power to fight back. The last text I ever received from my ex was simple. She admitted I'd been right about everything and asked if there was any chance we could start over. I never replied. Some bridges should stay burned, especially when crossing back would mean accepting disrespect disguised as love. They thought they were protecting their fortune from me. Instead, they handed me the key to my own.